What's up, everyone? Welcome back to King Anime Review, and for this video, I'll be reviewing the one-shot manga titled Naruto, The Whorl Within The Spiral, which was written and illustrated by the creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto. Now, this is the first time that he has both written and illustrated a manga since the Naruto Gaiden manga came out in 2015. Now, he did write Samurai 8 and Boruto, but he did not illustrate either one of those mangas. Now, I'm going to be going over the chapter, and I'll be telling you guys if I think his return to writing and illustrating manga went well or not. Now, the chapter started off with Minato and Team Jiraiya facing off against two Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki of the Five Tails, Han, and the Jinchuriki of the Four Tails, Roshi. And they fired off tail beast bombs at Team Minato, but they were able to escape thanks to Minato using the Flying Right Jinjutsu. Now, it's impressive that Minato had mastered this jutsu, or seemingly at least was able to do this jutsu at the start of this chapter, because he doesn't look that old in this chapter. He looks like maybe he's in his late teens, like somewhere between 16 to 18 or something like that. But he doesn't look that old in this chapter. And yeah, he doesn't look like, how he did at the start of Naruto. Now, we don't get a confirmation on how old he is in this chapter, but I think it's safe to say he's between like 16 and 18 in this chapter. Now, then we go back to the Hidden Leaf Village. Kushina wakes up from a nightmare. And, she was having a nightmare. The Nine-Tailed Fox was talking to her. Kurama was talking to her in her dream, saying that basically she's the one who's truly shackled. And so she woke up from that. Then she was running around in the place that she's residing in. And, she was excited to go train with Minato. But Minato came by and told her that he can't train with her today because he's trying to master a new jutsu. Like he's working on a new jutsu himself. But he usually, seemingly, he was usually training with Kushina. And on that day, he had basically promised Kushina, or he told Kushina that, set up a time for them to train. And Kushina was really looking forward to it. But Minato, told her he, wants to train to learn a new jutsu today. So he basically turned her down. She basically asked him, hey, are you trying to, you just don't want to spend time with me or something like that? If that's the case, just say that. And he denied that. He just said that he wanted to master his own new jutsu today. But Kushina was teaching him sealing jutsu, and she was going to teach him another sealing jutsu. So yeah, that's something that we learned in Naruto. I'm pretty sure that Kushina taught Minato sealing jutsu. He learned it from the Uzumaki family, the Uzumaki clan. And yeah, she was seemingly training him, teaching him, different jutsu, sealing jutsu. Now, also, we got the name of one of Minato's teammates. His name is Dakai. And, he's their darker skinned male teammate on Team Jiraiya alongside Minato, but we didn't get the name of his other teammate, which I find to be pretty strange. I think this would have been the best opportunity for them to finally give us the name of, or at least both of the names of the other two members of Team Jiraiya, because these are students of one of the legendary Sannin. So I'm pretty disappointed that we didn't at least get the name of Minato's other teammate. But anyways, we also have the reveal that their team is called Team 6. That's their number for their team, Team 6. And they basically told Minato that they got to go report, their mission. So then after that, they basically the manga cut to Minato training to learn a new jutsu. Now, this jutsu ended up being the Rasengan. And I like how the chapter showed us Minato learning the jutsu. It was very, very well written. The development and the origin of the Rasengan was very well written. And it's a couple reasons why I say that. One, I like how Jiraiya was the one who basically gave Minato the tools he needed, the idea he needed to actually make the jutsu work. Now, Minato, we already learned in the Naruto manga that the Rasengan was inspired by the tail beast bomb. Now, at the start of the chapter, we seen two Jinchuriki firing off tail beast bombs at Minato. So obviously he got the idea for the jutsu then. And yeah, he wanted to make a spear-like jutsu that could stand up to Jinchuriki jutsu like tail beast bombs. Since he knew that Kushina didn't have full control over the Nine Tails at that point, and they were in a time of war, so he wanted her to be able to stand up to other Jinchuriki. So it makes sense that he would, try to develop a spear-like jutsu for Kushina so she could stand up to other Jinchuriki. Now, that's very cool. And so one reason, like I said, is because I like how Jiraiya was the one who basically helped him, come up, or basically Jiraiya basically planted the seeds that Minato needed to figure out how to make this jutsu. Because he basically told him, similar to what he told Naruto in chapter 150 and 151, I believe. I believe it was actually 151. When he was teaching Naruto the Rasengan, he told Naruto, about like the direction of his hair, whether it goes clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever direction it goes, that's basically the direction that his chakra, naturally, spins in, or basically that's the way his chakra naturally goes. It shows like his hair will basically show that. Now, in Minato's case, he had two, like his hair went in two different directions. It swirled in two different directions, meaning unlike Naruto, Minato seemingly is a very rare prodigy in the sense that he actually had his chakra spinning or naturally being able to go in two different directions because his hair actually swirled in two different directions. Now, that makes a lot of sense considering the fact that Minato was a prodigy and Naruto really wasn't. Naruto really wasn't a prodigy and Minato was. And that it makes sense now that that's the case because the direction of his hair / chakra goes in two different directions, not just clockwise or counterclockwise. But anyways, once Minato learned that from Jiraiya, he thought to himself, hey, maybe I should spin my chakra in both directions simultaneously. And that's how he was able to create the Rasengan. So I like how Jiraiya played a part in the creation of the Rasengan. That's one reason why I like that, the origin of the Rasengan that we learned in this chapter. That's one reason. Another reason is I like the reasoning that Minato had for the Rasengan. Minato had a great reason for creating the Rasengan because he wanted to protect Kushina. That was his whole reasoning for creating the jutsu. And it made sense because they were in a time of war and he knew that Kushina, being the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, she could possibly get sent out onto the battlefield, and he wanted her to have a jutsu that could stand up to other Jinchuriki. He knew that she didn't have full control over the Nine-Tails, so obviously she wasn't going to be able to use Tail Beast Bombs, but he, wanted her to use a spear-like jutsu that could counter Tail Beast Bombs. So it makes sense. The whole reasoning for why he decided to develop the jutsu made sense. The fact that Jiraiya played a part in the development of the jutsu, the creation of the jutsu, was very, very cool. Also, it's consistent with the Naruto manga. The Rasengan was basically inspired by the Tail Beast Bomb. That's consistent with the Naruto manga. And then the fourth thing I like about the creation of the Rasengan, or the origin of the Rasengan that we learned in this chapter, is the name was actually given by Kushina. So Kushina actually named the jutsu. And since it was a jutsu developed for her, I'm assuming that she actually was able to use the jutsu at some point in time as well, although we've never seen her use it in the manga. Now, there is one thing about the Rasengan that we learned in this chapter that is kind of controversial. And that's the fact that obviously there wasn't a 3-year time span in this chapter. This chapter took place over the course of like a couple of days, because when Minato was learning the Rasengan, and he seemingly learned how to do it in one day, also showing how, how skilled he is and showing that he is a prodigy because, it just took a couple of hints from Jiraiya for him to actually be able to put together a A-ranked jutsu. And he basically was able to do it in one day. I'm pretty sure it was one day because, after Minato left, Kushina basically, she restrained her bodyguards with her Uzumaki golden chakra chains. Those chakra chains actually, came out of her hands, that's the first time we've seen that happen in the series. So that's kind of like a retcon, not a bad retcon. And by the way, the retcon just means a new piece of information that is adding a different or, imposes a different interpretation of something. So I see a lot of people using the word retcon as if it's bad and like always bad. It's not always bad. It just depends on how it's executed. If it contradicts something in the story, then it will be bad. But in the case with the Uzumaki clan chakra chains, the golden chakra chains that Kushina used in this chapter, it didn't actually contradict anything because it was never stated that they could only come out of her back. In this chapter, we've seen them come out of her hand as well, out of both of her hands. And I believe we've seen it come out of her torso as well. But in the Naruto manga, Kanin and Kushina, both of whom are Uzumakis, they both had the chakra chains come out of their back in the Naruto manga, and it only came out of their back. But yeah, also it was stated that those chakra chains that they've been getting stronger year by year. Like they keep getting stronger each year. So Kushina was able to restrain 2 Jonin bodyguards with her chakra chains, and she seemingly basically just, one-shotted, restrained them in like one move with those golden chakra chains, and they couldn't break out of it. And one of them said that her chakra chains is getting stronger year by year. That's the case with that. And then she went to spy on Minato. She went to watch him train, similar to how Hinata watched Naruto train in the Naruto manga. Now, so that's why I say this chapter seemingly took place over the course of only one day. Now, Minato learning this jutsu, getting back to the point I was about to make about this jutsu, and some people are saying it is a retcon because they're going off of what Jiraiya said in Naruto chapter 151, and they think it took Minato 3 years to make the Rasengan. No, it didn't take him 3 years to make the Rasengan. So this really isn't necessarily a retcon because, you know, if you go back to chapter 151, Jiraiya said that it took Minato, took the fourth Hokage, it took him 3 years to perfect the Rasengan, not to make the Rasengan. So there's a difference there. Think about it like, for example, if you playing basketball and you end up, you end up making a shot, right? You end up like, let's say you end up making a shot from the 3-point line. You end up making a shot. Yeah, you can shoot a basketball, but did you perfect in basketball? Did you master basketball just because you can make one shot? Or is that a fluke? No, you didn't master basketball just because you can shoot the basketball into a hoop and you got a point. No, it takes time for you to, to master stuff usually. Even though Minato is a prodigy, it makes sense that it still took him time to master it. Now, yes, he was able to create the jutsu in this chapter, but this doesn't contradict what Jiraiya said in Naruto chapter 151 when he said that it took Minato, the fourth Hokage, 3 years to perfect the jutsu. Now, perfecting something means that it's basically so good, like it has basically no flaws, basically. I'll put the definitions on screen, but I'm basically, summarizing. But yeah, so that's the case with that. Now, there is one other retcon in this chapter. I already went over the Uzumaki clan chakra chains, but there is another retcon, which is the fact that the Jinchuriki had a new mode. The two Jinchuriki who was fighting Team Minato or who was trying to kill Team Minato at the start of the chapter, Han and Roshi, they actually end up using a mode similar to what Naruto used in his KCM2 form in the fourth Great Ninja War when he was able to have a 9-tailed chakra avatar come out of his body. And yeah, he was still in his human form, but he had, the 9-tailed chakra, shaped into like a 9-tailed chakra avatar around him. Now, Han and Roshi was able to do the same thing in this chapter with their tailed beast. And that's a retcon because we've never seen any other Jinchuriki besides Naruto do that. Now, it's cool that we got to see that in this chapter. That's not a bad retcon. It doesn't contradict anything in the series. It was never any statements saying that only Naruto could do that. So it doesn't contradict anything, but it does add new information to the series. And now we know that basically it seems like all Jinchuriki can use that form. Now, it is kind of strange because all of them in the fourth Great Ninja War, they fully transformed into their tail beast rather than using that form. But it doesn't contradict anything nonetheless. Now, also, Naruto did at one point almost fully transform into the Nine Tails during the Pain arc, but he didn't actually fully transform into Kurama, even though I believe he did have 9 tails come out of him, but he didn't complete the transformation because, before the transformation could get completed, before he could undo the seal completely, Minato stopped him. But yeah, so I don't know, maybe Jinchuriki can just pick and choose whether they want to fully transform into their tail beast or go into that chakra avatar form. Now, in the fourth Great Ninja War, the Jinchuriki were actually controlled by Obito, so that's another thing to keep in mind, though. So yeah, we can, keep that in mind. So that might be the reason for that. Now, anyways, after Minato made the Rasengan, Kushina, he started talking to Kushina, and he basically gave her the reasoning that for why he decided to create the jutsu, which I already explained, so he can protect Kushina because he doesn't want to lose Kushina. And then Kushina, started attacking Minato. Well, she wasn't doing so willingly. The 9 tails started to possess her, and she ended up sprouting a 1-tailed chakra from, she ended up going into basically like the same form Naruto did at the end of part 1 when he fought Sasuke, the 9 tails, 1-tailed chakra cloak. That's what Kushina started off as. But then she eventually ended up going into the second stage of the tail beast transformation where, basically her skin peels off and then she's in like this super red, form similar to like, basically you guys should know the second stage of the tail beast transformation. So yeah, she went into that later on. Now this fight, so it was basically a fight between Minato and Kushina, who was possessed by the 9 tails, who was fighting Minato, and Kurama started to break free. Now the whole reason why this happened is because Kushina actually left a barrier. Now it was actually a barrier in the Hidden Leaf Village that strengthened the seal of the 9 tails, and that's why Kushina couldn't actually leave that barrier. That's why she actually has bodyguards. As a Jinchuriki, she had to stay in a certain area in the Hidden Leaf Village because that area basically makes her Nine-Tails seal stronger. However, in this chapter, Minato ended up sealing the he ended up putting another seal, strengthening the seal on Kushina, the trigram seal on Kushina, to further restrain the Nine-Tails. That's what he ended up doing in this chapter. Now, that makes sense because Kushina's seal is actually, in this chapter, is actually noticeably a lot weaker than what Naruto's was. Because in Naruto, we seen that his seal was like he had the Nine-Tails in a cage. Not the Nine-Tails was locked up like a pet. He was like in a cage in Naruto's Tail Beast Psyche plan. But in Kushina's Tail Beast Psyche plan, she wasn't like, it wasn't a cage. It was like basically the Nine-Tails was like on a ball, like he was attached to a ball. So it was a noticeably weaker seal. And once Kushina left the barrier, the Nine-Tails was able to easily break out of the seal, and he started to attack Minato. Now, Minato, once he does place the seal, on Kurama, it's actually stated that, his seal, it's stated that he's basically around the same level as Hashirama, a shinobi who's like the top tier alongside Hashirama. I'm basically, summarizing, paraphrasing, but that's basically what the Nine-Tails said. He basically said he's on Hashirama levels. Now, that's extremely impressive because the Nine-Tails is referring to Hashirama, most likely adult Hashirama, because as far as we know, the Nine-Tails only interacted with Hashirama when he was an adult and when Madara was, using the Nine-Tails to fight Hashirama. And this is a teen Minato. And he obviously got a lot stronger after this. In fact, the Rasengan wasn't even perfected in this chapter, or at least it wasn't confirmed to be perfected in this chapter. And if we go off the Naruto manga, it took Minato 3 years to perfect it. So he was using an imperfected Rasengan, and yet in this chapter, he was basically rivaling Hashirama. Not only is that very impressive, it is extremely weird as well, because this might mean that Minato at his peak, when he was alive, not even counting KCM Minato, is actually rivaling Hashirama as being the strongest Hokage alongside Hashirama. And, well, obviously Naruto is stronger than, Naruto at his peak was stronger than Hashirama. But aside from Naruto, Minato might actually be the strongest Hokage, or at least rivaling Hashirama for that number 2 spot. So yeah, that's what happened there. So basically the Nine-Tails was attacking Minato. He actually cut him with the first time he swiped Kushina's tail at him. He cut Minato. And then Minato, also got stabbed through the chest. And it's crazy that he survived that. I'm guessing it's because, we seen that Tsunade was in the Hidden Leaf Village at this point. I believe this was the second Great Ninja War and not the third Great Ninja War. But Tsunade was in the Hidden Leaf Village. And maybe she used Lady Kasuyu to heal Minato's wounds. But yeah, he did get stabbed right through the chest. So that should have been a fatal wound. I think it's believable that, he could have been healed though with the power of, the Lady Kasuyu and possibly Tsunade using her Bakugo seal or 100 healing seal. And maybe even Kushina, maybe she had the same ability as Kanin, where if you bite her, you can completely heal your wounds. Because we seen like in a Killer Bee fight, Sasuke got pierced he got pierced all over his body. He got stabbed through, not fully, but like he had, open wounds, and he was able to completely heal, even though swords pierced, inside his body, he was able to heal by biting Kanin. But anyway, so yeah, it was a nice little fight with the Nine-Tails and Kushina. Basically, Minato was saying that he won't let Kurama take Kushina because, Kushina is stronger than him and he loves Kushina. And he ended up using a Rasengan to end the fight. And like he used the Rasengan to counter the Nine-Tails Tail Beast Bomb. And the Tail Beast Bomb was noticeably bigger than Rasengan here. And yet Minato was still seemingly able to counter it with a imperfected Rasengan, which is very impressive. Now, we did have help from Kushina in this chapter because Kushina was using her Uzumaki clan chakra chains to restrain Kurama. But the fight basically ended kind of abruptly with, Kushina tying down Kurama with the chakra chains and Minato countering the Tail Beast Bomb with a imperfected Rasengan, seemingly. And then the fight basically just ended right there. So I'm guessing that maybe, the Rasengan either overpowered Kurama in that situation, or, the blast caused by the Rasengan and the Tail Beast Bomb clashing basically ended the fight and knocked out Kurama. And then Kushina was able to restrain him with her Uzumaki clan chakra chains. and also that seal that Minato placed on Kushina, placed on the Nine Tails inside Kushina. I'm assuming that strengthened the seal that was already placed on Kushina. And yeah, it makes sense that she had a weaker seal than Naruto because, Minato is stated basically to be rivaling Hashirama in this chapter. And no other shinobi in the village rival Hashirama at that time, at the time of Minato. So with that being said, it makes sense that whoever placed that seal on her wouldn't have placed the seal strong enough to fully restrain the Nine Tails, which is why they needed that barrier. But since Minato placed the seal on her, now the seal is actually strong enough to fully restrain the Nine Tails. So I'm assuming she don't need to be in that barrier anymore. Now, in the case of Naruto, Minato is the one who placed the seal on Naruto, so it makes sense why that seal will be stronger. Now, then, oh yeah, also it was a flashback, a brief little flashback in the chapter of Kushina with Mito Uzumaki, the previous Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. She was just basically talking about how the Uzumaki clan had been scattered, and she also mentioned that the Uzumaki clan, like they had super strong life force and chakra reserves, I believe, and due to the, basically, synchronizing or something to do with the water waves or whatever, or the something to do with like, them being able to, oh yeah, being attuned, in tune with the water spirals or whatever, or, the waves or whatever. And that's how they were able to have strong chakra and a strong life force. Now, I don't think that's accurate. What I think actually is the case is I think she's unknowingly downplaying the Uzumaki clan. Because if what she said is true, then anybody can gain the super strong life force of the Uzumaki clan and the strong and a high strong chakra reserves of the Uzumaki clan just by doing the same thing that they did, attuning themselves with the water, the waves or whatever. But I don't think that's the case because the Uzumaki clan are direct descendants of Ashura Aotsutsuki, who was stated to, I believe he was stated to have inherited the body of Hagoromo Aotsutsuki, whereas his brother Indra inherited the eyes of Hagoromo Aotsutsuki. So I believe the reason why the Uzumaki clan has such a strong life force and chakra reserves in comparison to every other clan in Naruto, with the possible exception of the Senju clan and maybe the Uchiha clan, but I think the Uchiha clan is not necessarily in that category, even though they have a strong chakra. I don't think it's as strong, and I don't think their life force is as strong as the Uzumaki and Senju because they're descendants of Ashura. But anyways, yeah, so I think the reason why the Uzumaki clan are so exceptional is because they're descendants of Hagoromo. Now, of course, in Naruto, it seemed like a lot of characters thought the story of Hagoromo, the Sage of the Six Paths, was actually a myth. A lot of people thought it was mythology. Like, I believe when Obito was fighting Conan and he mentioned the Sage of the Six Paths, I believe Conan thought it was a myth. I think it was a couple characters in the series, or at least one character in the series who Obito was talking to about the Sage of the Six Paths. As a matter of fact, it might have been Kakashi and Yamato when Obito, appeared to them in the Land of Iron during the Five Kage Summit arc. Like, I believe it was at some point in the series. You guys can, go ahead and drop the chapter that it was in. But I believe it was at some point in the series that Obito was talking about the Sage of the Six Paths, and somebody said, oh, no, that's just a myth. So it will make sense why, people will have a misinterpretation of why the Uzumaki clan is so strong. Even Uzumaki clan members themselves, like Mito, it makes sense why she would have a misinterpretation of why the Uzumaki clan is so strong and downplay the clan like the way she did in this chapter, saying that they were able to get that strong life force by, attuning themselves with the waves. It makes sense why she would, be, misinterpreting that, because she probably, the whole thing about the Sage of the Six Paths, a lot of characters in the series, I believe, regarded it as a myth, as mythology, as something that was just a story from the past that didn't really happen. But anyways, yeah, I'm pretty sure Uzumaki clan got that strong because they're descendants of, the Aotsutsuki clan, unlike any other clan in Naruto, with the exception of the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan, as well as the Hyuga clan and the the Aotsutsuki clan that was on the moon. But yeah, that's the case with that. Now, or actually the Kaguya clan as well. I believe they're also descendants of the Aotsutsuki clan. But anyways, yeah, so we had a little flashback, and basically Mito took Kushina to a room, she took Kushina to a building that had a spiral staircase. And she said that the Uzumaki clan, she basically was talking about the Uzumaki clan symbol, the crest, and how it's a vortex, and how the room is also a vortex. But then she corrected herself, I believe, and she said the room is actually a helix. And as you climb up the helix, the spiral staircase, the spinning staircase, and you get to the top. And when she gets to the top, she likes to go up there because she can look at the Hokage stone faces and see Hashirama, who's her her at this point she's a widow, but that's her deceased husband, Hashirama. And she said she basically told Kushina that you can climb, even though you're a Jinchuriki, basically, if you find the will to climb, you can find love. And then she said basically then the spiral will become a helix. Now helix actually means, helix in Japanese is Rasengan. So that's where the name for Rasengan came from, because Kushina remembered what Mito told her, and that's how she came up with the idea to name the Rasengan. That's why she came up with the name for the Rasengan, because originally Minato named it something else. I forgot the exact name for it. It was a pretty long name. Minato is known for giving long names for jutsus. But yeah, so Minato originally named it something long, and I believe he said it was inspired by Jiraiya. I like how Jiraiya was, influential into making the Rasengan. But yeah, so Minato had a long name for it originally, but Kushina basically renamed it at the end of the chapter. She named it Rasengan, which is, symbolizing the helix, and, because Rasengan mean helix. Yeah, that's the case with that. Kushina is a much better namer of jutsu than Minato, obviously. In fact, probably most characters in the series probably is. But yeah, so Minato woke up in a hospital after fighting in Nine Tails alongside Kushina. And then that's when Kushina took him to the same building that Mito took her to when she was a kid. And they walked up the staircase, and then, she named the jutsu Rasengan. And Minato, his face was right, next to, on the page, his face was right next to the other Hokage's faces, which is cool symbolism because we know he ended up becoming the fourth Hokage. So that was cool right there. And yeah, that was the end of the chapter. And the chapter, honestly, was fantastic. The artwork was absolutely amazing. Kishimoto did a fantastic job. It's been, I think it's been 8 years since he's actually drawn a full manga, because the last time he drew a manga, the last time he illustrated a manga was back in 2015 with the Naruto Gaiden manga. And now he returned as an illustrator. He did a fantastic job with the artwork. The artwork was fantastic. I would even say it's probably better than Samurai 8 and Boruto's artwork. I don't want to, take shots at Ikimono, because a lot of people, criticize his artwork. He does do a good job with character designs and stuff, but Kishimoto is still a better artist. And as far as the story go, it was fantastic. I like the origin story of the Rasengan. Now, there's a couple things I want to get into, though. Now, one of the things is I did hear a popular YouTuber, Swag Kage, when he was reading this chapter, he said that he didn't like the so-called filler episodes. I believe he said he didn't like the so-called filler episodes that happened in Shippuden. That was about Indra and Ashura, because he thinks that, I believe he said he thinks that it contradicts the series or has some plot holes or retcons. I think he was implying that. But yeah, first off, those episodes at the end of Shippuden, or shall I say towards the end of Shippuden, with Indra and Ashura, that Indra and Ashura flashback didn't contradict anything in the series and didn't have any plot holes in it. So people think just because Ashura, used wood style, which was supposed to be something that was, I believe, created and unique to Hashirama. I don't know if that was ever stated in this series, but I think that's the case. And yeah, but Ashura using wood style is not a problem. And him using a jutsu that has Rasengan in it is not a problem as well. I think that's what Swag Kage was trying to say, that it was a plot hole or a retcon in those flashback episodes, because Ashura used the jutsu to have Rasengan in it, and Minato was the one who actually created the Rasengan. Now, let's say, for example, for the sake of argument, let's say Ashura did use the Rasengan. That wouldn't actually contradict anything in the series, because, things can be rediscovered. Like, even in the real world, if you guys know a decent amount about history, they said Christopher Columbus discovered America, but it was actually already people here. So if anything, that would be like a rediscovery. And plus, it was somebody else who I believe was stated to actually come to America before him from Europe, which I believe his name was actually America. Now, I'm not trying to get too much into real world history. I'm just giving you guys an example. Well, point is, things being rediscovered after a long period of time, and then people saying that, hey, this person discovered this, is something that's pretty normal for the most part. Now, for that to happen in fiction would probably even make more sense, because you got to keep in mind, Ashura was he was born like 1,000 years before Minato, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was about 1,000 years before Minato was born. And, so even if he did use the Rasengan before Minato, it would make sense that people thought Minato was the one who actually created the jutsu, because nobody's seen Ashura actually do the jutsu in Minato's time period. In fact, that would have been like a 1,000-year time span between Rasengan users. So, and plus, like I already talked about earlier on in the video, Obito, when he was talking about the Sage of the Six Paths, I believe somebody actually thought it was a myth. So the story of the Sage of the Six Paths and Indra and Ashura is regarded as mythology in the current time period of Naruto slash, even in Minato's time period. I believe that would have been regarded as mythology. Minato is basically, he's Naruto was born, during Minato's lifetime. Minato died right before. Well, actually, he died the same day Naruto was born, or within a day of Naruto being born. So yeah, it makes sense that in this time period, people, I mean, because we already seen in this series, I'm pretty sure that characters regarded the story of the Sage of the Six Paths, and I'm pretty sure Andrew and Ashura, as mythology. So even if Minato, even if Ashura was the first one to use the Rasengan, you know, it would make sense that if somebody seen Minato use it, they would think that he developed a new jutsu because nobody's seen Ashura use the Rasengan in this time period. So that's the case with that. And it's not just this time period. I mean, even even the War and States period or whatever, no characters ever used the Rasengan besides Minato. So and I guess you could say maybe Ashura, but the thing is, Ashura didn't even use the Rasengan. He had a wind style bubble that had multiple Rasengans in it. So even then, you can argue that he didn't even use the Rasengan in those anime original episodes. You can argue that he didn't use the Rasengan. He had a jutsu that you could say is similar to Rasengan, but he didn't actually use the one spear Rasengan, the single Rasengan, which Minato created in this chapter. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, yeah, I already said that the chapter had great artwork and the story of the chapter was great. I'm a huge fan of Kushina, and I'm actually kind of a fan of Minato as well. So I like the story of this chapter. I like seeing the origins and how the Rasengan was created. I love really everything about this chapter. However, I do think it was a huge missed opportunity to not give really any details to Minato's teammates who were on Team Jiraiya. These are students of Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, and we still don't know what jutsus they can use, how strong they are, or anything like that. In fact, we don't even know one of their names. We know we got the name for one of the characters, but we didn't get the name for the other character who's on Team Minato. So that was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, the least Kishimoto could have did, in my opinion, if he wasn't going to focus on those characters, is at least give us the names of both of those characters. So it's kind of crazy that we didn't even get their names. We don't even know if they became Jonin at any point in time throughout the series. We don't know if they, became Chunin or Jonin. We don't even know what their ninja rank was. And they're students of the legendary Sannin. Now, when I was talking about the Naruto Top 99 results, because in case you guys didn't know, the only reason Minato got this manga is because he won the Naruto Top 99 character popularity vote, the Naruto Top 99 popularity vote. And it really wasn't a real popularity poll because, they announced that the winner of the poll, they revealed that the winner of the poll would get a one-shot manga by Masashi Kishimoto before the poll even started. So it really wasn't a real, genuine popularity poll, a genuine character popularity poll. And yeah, but Minato ended up winning. And I said, when I was talking about the results, I said the only good thing that could come out of this Minato manga, in my opinion, at the time, I said the only good thing that could come out of the Minato manga possibly is learning more about his teammates, because we already knew everything we needed to know about Minato. Now, in this chapter, did we really learn much new? I mean, we already got the backstory of Minato and Kushina. We got that back in the Naruto series, back in the Naruto Shippuden anime, and back in the Naruto manga, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, we already seen, the backstory for Minato and Kushina, whereas there's plenty of characters in the series that we didn't see the backstory of, such as Fugaku Uchiha and Mikoto Uchiha. We didn't see their backstory. We didn't see how they got together, like we seen how Minato and Kushina got together and seeing their backstory. We didn't even know Fugaku's jutsu. I mean, we know Fugaku got the Mangekyo Sharingan. That was revealed in the Naruto Shippuden anime, and I believe one of the Itachi novels, but I don't think that was revealed in the manga. But yeah, we know Fugaku awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, but we didn't see how he awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. We didn't see what his Susanoo looks like. We didn't see his Susanoo's abilities. We don't know either one of his Mangekyo Sharingan unique abilities for each of his eyes. We didn't get any of that information. We don't know his jutsu. We never even seen him fight. And we seen Minato fight. We already knew he created the Rasengan. We knew he could use Flying Raijin Jutsu. We seen him fight in the 4th grade ninja war. So there's plenty of things that we already knew about Minato that we didn't know about other characters, such as their jutsus and their backstories and stuff like that. So it was a huge missed opportunity for us to get this Minato manga. I'm not saying the manga was bad, because I think the manga was fantastic, but it was a missed opportunity. We could have got a manga about Fugaku Uchiha, for example, or Mikoto Uchiha, where we could have learned way more information about characters like them who we didn't learn about in the past. Even Sakamo Hatake, we could have learned a decent amount about him. We didn't see him fight in the series, and so on and so forth. There's other characters we could have learned about. So it was a huge missed opportunity, this manga in general. And I mean, really, it's because the fans voted for this manga for the most part. And yeah, the fan base kind of, The fan base is the reason why we had a huge missed opportunity. We could have got way more information about characters who didn't have nowhere near as much depth and detail and revelations about them in the series of Naruto. And also, yeah, I already talked about like how we didn't get much information about Minato's teammates. That was a huge missed opportunity as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of Kushina, and I'm happy that she had a lot of focus in this chapter. But we already knew a decent amount about Kushina. We didn't know anything about Minato's teammates, who are students of the legendary Sannin, or one of the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya. But anyways, with that being said, yeah, that's what I got to say about this chapter. Overall, it's a 10 out of 10 chapter, 10 out of 10 artwork, and 10 out of 10 for the story. Fantastic chapter. I hope we can get more, one-shot mangas from Kishimoto in the future, centered around characters who don't have much detail and depth. For example, Fugaku Uchiha, I want to see a one-shot manga of him and his wife Mikoto Uchiha. I want to see that in the future. But anyways, with that being said, thank you guys for watching the video. Let me know what you guys will rate the chapter and the video, the review, in the comment section below out of 10. And also, like the video if you liked it, and share the video all over the internet. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.